Hi forward YouTube channel viewers. Today video we are going to see a landmark case, a provisional order which was delivered by International Court of Justice on 23rd June 2020 against the country Myanmar. Dear viewers, this video, it would consist a length of time. I request all the viewers not to skip the video because this video consists of several sequence of facts and events. Therefore, without skipping the video, all the viewers are requested to see it. Therefore, you will not only benefit through this video, and also I request the viewers to put your valuable comments below the video. Thanking you, dear viewers. Now we will go into the topic. On 11th November 2019, a lawyer from Gambia, his name is Abubacarr Tambadou, he filed an application before the International Court of Justice against the country Myanmar. This application was filed for getting justice to the Rohingya Muslims who are living in the state of Rakhine in Myanmar. Before going into the facts of the case, dear viewers, let us know about the history of Myanmar. Myanmar, before it was called as Burma, it was during the year 1989, it was renamed as Myanmar, and Myanmar is a country which is surrounded by, in the eastern side by Thailand, and in the northern side by China, and in the west Bangladesh, along with Bay of Bengal. This is the geographical location of Myanmar, and the state of Rakhine, that is situated in the western side of the Myanmar country. Now we will see a brief history of the Burma. During the year 1785, this Burma was formerly a Rakhine kingdom. This kingdom was annexed by a Burmese king called Padopaya, and he was ruling the kingdom of Burma. During 1824 to 1826, there was an Anglo-Burmese war. At the outcome of the Anglo-Burmese war, Rakhine state was annexed to British India. During 1942 and 1943, at the time of Second World War, there was a clash between the Rakhine people, one group supporting pro-British Muslim and another group supporting pro-Japanese. These people, they clashed themselves, and during the outcome of this clash, the people of Rakhine, they splitted into two groups. One is the Rakhine people, they moved towards the southern part of the Rakhine. Then another people, the pro-British Muslims, they moved to the northern region of the Rakhine state. This is an important period where the people in the Rakhine province who are living together, after this conflict, they become two distinct and different group of people. During the year 1948, Burma got its independence from British. During the year 1958, the first president of Burma was Saifullah. He recognized the Muslims who are living in the Rakhine state as an indigenous people and a distinct people, and they were conferred right to vote during the election which held in 1960. During the year 1962, Burma witnessed the military coup. General Ne Win, who took charge as a general of Burma, when he became the general, he was acted like a dictator and he discriminated the Muslims in the Rakhine state, and he saw them as an ethnic group, and he was a racist. He liked only the Burmese people, and only those people who have the color, the skin texture like Burmese, they acknowledged them as the citizens of Burma. The other non-Burmese people were subject to discrimination and all other unlawful illegal activities were carried against them. Even the British people, the Western people who were residing in Burma, they are also discriminated. He was the general in Burma for the period of 26 years. Burma witnessed the worst economical, political and other social welfare crises. Almost the Burma, before he became the general, it was one of the world's richest country. After 26 years, Burma became the poorest country in the world. That much of the problems and atrocities this General Ne Win was committing against the Muslims in the Rakhine state. During the year 1974, Rakhine was conferred statehood by Burma. 1977 to 1978, there was a national crackdown against the Muslims in Rakhine state, which led to more than 2 lakh Muslims from Rakhine state. They fled into the Bangladesh. During the year 1982, since the Muslims in the Rakhine state, they were suffering from various crimes committed by the military soldiers. In the year 1982, Burma enacted a citizenship law which excluded the Muslims, the Rohingya Muslims, from the scheduled 135 races in the country, and they were not given citizenship. During the year 1991 to 1992, a military operation called Paitaya, it made the Muslims in the Rakhine state to flee from Myanmar to Bangladesh, more than 250,000 Muslims from the Rakhine state, due to the atrocities and crimes, they fled from Myanmar to Bangladesh. During the year 1992, NASAKA, this is a military border security force, was established on the border of the Rakhine state in order to prevent the large scale of immigration from the foreign borders, especially in order to prevent the Muslims who are coming from Bangladesh into the Rakhine state of Myanmar. This border security force, it was too harsh and completely subjected the Muslims in the Rakhine state to all torture activities. During the year 1993 to 1995, those Rohingya Muslims who fled from Myanmar to Bangladesh due to the military operation, they came back to their homeland Rakhine state through the assistance of UN Human Rights Commission for Refugees. And also during 1993, the Myanmar military, they imposed a rule which stated that the Rohingya Muslims cannot marry. Those Muslims who majority they live in the township of Tambadou. So marriage between the Muslim community was restricted in the year 1993 by the military regime. During the year 1994, the Myanmar military regime, they also restricted issuing birth certificate for those children born to Rohingya Muslims. And during the year 1997, the military regime, they completely restricted the movement of Rohingya Muslims from the township of Tambadou. So therefore, by the year 1997, the Rohingya Muslims, they lost even the basic rights and to live as a human being. Essential and fundamental rights were curtailed by and large by the Myanmar military regime. During the year 2001, another disastrous event occurred in the Rakhine state. 28 mosques of Muslims' place of worship were destroyed, and also number of Islamic schools of Rohingya Muslims were destroyed by the military regime. During the year 2012, a most disastrous event occurred in the Rakhine state. One Buddhist woman, she was murdered in a very brutal manner, and it was alleged that murder was done by the Muslims in the Rakhine state, and this was further fueled by the public, and there was a huge outrage broke between the Muslim community and the Buddhist community, and there was a serious clash between these two Muslim and Buddhist community, which led to several Muslims community people and Buddhist people died during this clash, and violence also erupted in the Rakhine state between these communities at very large scale. During the year 2010, there was a military election conducted in Myanmar. In this election, there was a remarkable victory happened. Aung San Suu Kyi, who is the political leader and the founder of the National League of Democracy. She was arrested by the military regime and kept in jail for 15 years. She fought this 2000 election, and to the disappointment of the military regime, her party won more than 75% of the seats, and she became a de facto leader of the Myanmar government, and she also subsequently released from the jail. And when this was the position, on 8th June 2012, this conflict between the Muslims community and the Buddhist occurred. Outcome was the villages of the Muslims in the Rakhine were burnt, and there was a total devastation of places belong to the Muslims in the Rakhine. On 10th September 2019, a BBC reporter, namely Jonathan Head, he made a news coverage titled Rohingya Crisis. He went to the Rakhine state, an official tour, where he saw those settlement of Rohingya Muslims. After 2012, there were no signs of Rohingya Muslim settlements. What he saw was the entire village, the area where the Rohingya Muslims lived, were occupied by police barricades, government buildings, and other institutions, and also another supporting agency working on the Rohingya crisis revealed a satellite report which shows 40% of the Rohingya Muslims territory in the Rakhine state were completely destroyed. And this was covered by the reporter Jonathan Head, stated that there was a deliberate attempt of a complete eradication of the Rohingya Muslim community in the Rakhine state by the Myanmar military regime. During the year 2015, Aung San Suu Kyi, she was the de facto leader in the Myanmar government. She proposed a transition democracy from the military regime, and therefore, in order to secure the status of the Rohingya Muslims, she proposed a process called National Verification Card. In short, it is called as NVC. This process is to identify the Rohingya Muslims, whether they were the indigenous people of the Burma, and then to confer them a recognition status for them. And Aung San Suu Kyi, she was particularly more focused on inclusion of only the nationalist people and other monks and foreign Muslims, and she was not concerned about the welfare of the Rohingya Muslims, and she did not entertain any representatives from the Rohingya Muslim community into her government. This is because she don't want to make herself a wrong image from the monks and the nationalists, because there is always a hatred between the Buddhist monks and the Rohingya Muslims. And when the national verification card was circulated to the Rohingya Muslims, the Rohingya Muslims did not participate in that process because Aung San Suu Kyi, she never explained for what purpose she was doing this process. And in order to participate in this process, the Rohingya Muslims has to show some documents, some credible documents to prove that they were the indigenous people of Myanmar. But this they cannot able to do, the reason being the Burma got independence only during the year 1948, and there was a cut-off date in the national verification card from the year 1864. The people in the Burma, they have to show their documents, and these Rohingya Muslims, they don't have the documents. And if they participate in the national verification card, then in the conclusion, it will only reveal that they are the people like illegal immigrants. During the year September 2016, Aung San Suu Kyi, she invited Mr. Kofi Annan, who was the Nobel laureate for peace of the year 2001 and former UN Secretary General. He was running a Kofi Annan Foundation which takes care of any human rights violation across the globe. She was invited by the Myanmar government and to do a study on the Rohingya Muslims in the Rakhine state. His study was titled Peaceful and Prosperous Future for the Rakhine people. And the Kofi Annan Foundation, along with the support of the Myanmar government, it went into the Rakhine state and studied the conditions of Rohingya Muslims. And during the year August 2017, the Kofi Annan Commission, it submitted its famous report, where the report consists of 163 pages. Kofi Annan Commission found 3 crises which were ongoing in the Rakhine state, which affected the lives of Rohingya Muslims. One is a serious conditions of human rights violation. Secondly, poor infrastructure and development. And thirdly, the Rohingya Muslims were facing severe security crisis. The entire Rohingya Muslim populations were completely insecure and they don't know what will happen to them each day-to-day life, and their life was in danger. In the year March 2017, the United Nations Independent International Fact-Finding Mission on Myanmar, set up by United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, pointed out that there was a systematic oppression and persecution against Rohingya Muslims by the Myanmar military regime from birth to their death. Extreme vulnerability of Rohingya Muslims as a consequences of state policies and practices implemented against them. In the year September 2018, Independent International Fact-Finding Mission on Myanmar submitted its report to the United Nations Human Rights Council, where it concluded that there was an element of genocidal intention to eliminate the Rohingya Muslims either partly or wholly. And this report, it stated two diabolic massacres. The two important diabolic, most brutal massacre which was done by the Myanmar military soldiers against the Rohingya Muslims was that one, the Rohingya Muslims were pulled out from their house and they were fired by the military soldiers in front of all the family members, and some of the male members of the Rohingya Muslims families were pulled out from their house and the military soldiers in the public view executed them. And this was happening in each and every house of Rohingya Muslims. And also even the babies and the children, they were not left out. The Rohingya Muslims babies and children were pushed into the burning fire, and some children and babies were also thrown into the burning of the Rohingya huts. And this massacre was deliberately done by the Myanmar military regime, and this was what the Independent Fact-Finding Commission on Myanmar stated in its report. In the year May 2018, when all the atrocities and inhuman, barbaric, cruel, the most heinous crimes which were committed by the military soldiers of Myanmar against the Rohingya Muslims, these Rohingya Muslims for the past 4 decades were under a tremendous inhuman treatment, and they were crying and they were shouting and yelling. Most of the more than 1.5 million people of Rohingya Muslims fled away from Myanmar into the Bangladesh as a refuge, and they were longing for any support either from the people of the Myanmar or from any community or society across the world or any from international human rights institutions. These Rohingya Muslims were deprived of, and they were awaiting for a savior and for their right to their basic necessities and all other things for a decent and standard living. In these circumstances, a big ray of hope which showered on the Rohingya Muslims, that is the advent of OIC, Organization of Islamic Cooperation. They participated in the year on 6th May 2018, Organization of Islamic Cooperation, along with its members, they visited a refugee camp in Bangladesh, and they saw the plight of the Rohingya Muslims being refugees in the camp, and they participated in the famous Dhaka Declaration under the theme Islamic Values of Prosperous Development. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation, they participated in the famous Dhaka Declaration under the theme of Islamic Sustainable Peace and Prosperous Development, touching upon the Rohingya crisis. During the declaration, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, one of the minutes of the meeting was, it is established that there was a systematic, a planned atrocities and human rights violation which was perpetrated by the Rohingya military and other security forces against the Rohingya Muslims, which has made more than 3 lakh Rohingya Muslims to fled away from the Rakhine state to the neighboring country Bangladesh, and serious crimes and flagrant human rights violation and also violation of international convention was done by the Myanmar military regime against the Rohingya Muslims, and the Dhaka declaration came to a conclusion that there is an element of ethnic cleansing was done by the Myanmar military security forces against Rohingya Muslims, and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation took a decision that not only the Rohingya Muslims was heavily affected, but even the mothers, the children and babies, even they were also not spared by the military regime. And the outcome of the Dhaka declaration, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, they took a concrete decision that something has to be done in order to protect the most valuable human rights of the Rohingya Muslims in the state of Rakhine in Myanmar. In the Dhaka declaration, Sheikh Hasina, the leader of the Bangladesh, she vehemently stated that the most persecuted community in the entire world is the Rohingya Muslims community, and she assured and she stated that she would support for all the international organization and all the member states to take immediate action against the security forces and the perpetrators of the crime who have committed the heinous acts against the Rohingya Muslims. And more importantly, leader Sheikh Hasina, she strongly recommended to implement the famous Mr. Kofi Annan report to be implemented in order to elevate the status and conditions of the Rohingya Muslims. And in the year after the Dhaka declaration, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation in the year 2018, they passed a resolution stating that an ad hoc committee should be immediately formed in order to bring those security forces to the accountability and also to bring justice to the affected Rohingya Muslims in order to prevent any more genocidal acts which may be committed against the Rohingya Muslims. And in this resolution, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, it chose the country Gambia in order to take the cause of Rohingya Muslims to all international forums of human rights to secure the rights of the Rohingya Muslims. Now, what is this country Gambia? Why the Organization of Islamic Cooperation appointed Gambia as the defender of the Rohingya Muslims? Gambia is situated in the western side of Africa, and this country is a small Muslim majoritarian country where 95% of these countries are Muslims, and this small country, it got independence from the United Kingdom only during the year 1965. And this Gambia, this country with the support of European Union and also with the support of Islamic Cooperation Council, it made preparation to take suitable action against the government of Myanmar. On 27th September 2018, the United Nations Human Rights Council passed a very important resolution. It called for joint efforts of the European Union states and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. After going through the findings submitted by the Independent International Fact-Finding Commission on Myanmar, which warrants the investigation and prosecution against the senior officials of the Myanmar military chief commands, and the resolution also stated a competent court has to be approached in order to make the senior officials of the military Myanmar to be accountable and to be liable for the genocide which has been committed against the Rohingya Muslims living in the Rakhine state. In the month of December 2018, the United Nations Assembly of Administrative and Budgetary Committee, which allocated $28 million to the International Independent Fact-Finding Commission on Myanmar in order to probe the human rights violation against the Rohingya Muslims and to submit its report. And accordingly, the fact-finding mission on Myanmar submitted very serious evidence of crimes against international law which were committed against the Rohingya Muslims to the UN body. On 14th November 2019, the United Nations General Assembly Committee, it approved the draft resolution which was submitted by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where grave concern over the human rights violation and international humanitarian crisis which was perpetrated by the military forces against the Rohingya Muslims and also other minorities in the Rakhine state as well. Up to November 2019, even though there were many bilateral and multilateral resolutions were formed by the UN and other international organizations touching the humanitarian crisis against the Rohingya Muslims, but none of the treaties or bilateral and multilateral agreements could not able to alleviate the sufferings of the Rohingya Muslims, and there was a need of an effective and more constructive incident which would be meaningful and fruitful for the Rohingya Muslims condition. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation and other member states of the European Union, they came to a conclusion that a competent court is the need of the hour in order to establish and render justice to the affected Rohingya Muslims, and therefore they unanimously took a decision to approach the International Court of Justice. Now let us see what is International Court of Justice. International Court of Justice is the judiciary organ of the United Nations, and it is situated in The Hague, the Netherlands. The ICJ, it consists of 15 judges, and the judges are appointed for the term of 9 years, and the selection of judges are very stringent. If a judge to be appointed in the International Court of Justice, he should get a vote of absolute majority by both UN General Assembly and by the Security Council. And with regard to the prerequisite qualification to become a judge of the International Court of Justice, that judge should have an exemplary moral character, and he should serve as a highest judiciary capacity in his country, and also he should be a scholar of international law. At this juncture, India, we have a pride moment that one of the member judge of the International Court of Justice is Mr. Justice Dalveer Bhandari. He is a former Supreme Court judge who was appointed in the year 2005 before the Supreme Court of India, and he retired in the year 2012. After the retirement of Mr. Justice Dalveer Bhandari, he was elected in the UN, and he was appointed as a member judge in the year 2012 at the International Court of Justice. Justice Dalveer Bhandari is a distinguished jurist, not only in the human rights jurisprudence but also in international law. And recently, when Justice Dalveer Bhandari's tenure came to end after 9 years, during the year 2018, the International Court of Justice extended his tenure further from the year 2018, which is a pride occasion for the Indians to celebrate. The International Court of Justice exercises two types of jurisdiction. One is advisory jurisdiction and another one is contentious jurisdiction. Article 36 subclause 1 of the Charter of the International Court of Justice entertains disputes between the member states. Any state which is a party to any convention, international convention or treaty or any other international agreements where either member states feeling aggrieved that another member state of that convention, agreement or treaty has violated its obligation, then the member nations can bring a settlement of disputes before the International Court of Justice. The historical event occurred on 11th November 2019 when an international lawyer, Abubacarr Tambadou of Gambia, he filed an application before the International Court of Justice against the Myanmar, raising a dispute between the Gambia and Myanmar. And Gambia is supported by Organization of Islamic countries and all other member states of European Union. The case which was filed before the International Court of Justice, the facts are the case filed by the Gambia. The case of the Gambia was Myanmar has violated the 1948 Convention on Prevention and Punishment of Crimes against Genocide, in which Myanmar and the Gambia are the parties to the Genocide Convention of 1948. So, the argument of the Gambia was Myanmar military security forces violated the obligation and also committed heinous crimes against the Rohingya Muslims living in the Rakhine state, which the Myanmar did under the scheme of Operation Clearance. This is the military operation which was recognized officially by the Myanmar government. The aim and purpose to commit genocidal acts against the Rohingya Muslims by killing the Rohingya Muslims, murdering the children, babies, rape and other sexual harassment against women and all other inhumane atrocities against the Rohingya Muslims. All these genocidal acts are complete flagrant violation and contravention of the provisions of 1948 Convention on Genocide, which the Gambia brought the Myanmar into the account before the International Court of Justice. The Gambia, they filed an interim application before the International Court of Justice to provide firstly an interim provisional measures in order to secure the basic rights of Rohingya Muslims and to prevent immediately the cruel acts and other genocidal acts of security forces against the Rohingya Muslims. Gambia was represented by Mr. Abubacarr Tambadou and Myanmar was represented by Aung San Suu Kyi before the International Court of Justice, and the International Court of Justice, at the request of the Gambia and the Myanmar, kept public hearing of the dispute to hear the interim application, and the public hearing was held for 3 days, starting from December 10, 2019 to December 12, 2019, both the Council for the Rohingya Muslims, Abubacarr Tambadou, and in favor and defending the Myanmar military security forces, Aung San Suu Kyi, she argued in person before the International Court of Justice. The hearing held for 3 days. After the hearing, the International Court of Justice delivered an historical and a landmark provisional measures in order to protect the rights and interests of the Rohingya Muslims. What were the interim provisional measures that were delivered by the International Court of Justice by all the judges unanimously? Interim provisional measure order till delivering its final judgment on the original dispute filed by the country Gambia. The 4 interim provisional measures the International Court of Justice ordered. Firstly, Myanmar shall undertake to comply all the obligations which were mentioned in the Genocide Convention 1948, and the Myanmar security forces should take all effective measures to prevent and protect the Rohingya Muslims and to prevent any crimes which may be a genocidal act or killings or any sexual harassment or any human rights violation against the Rohingya Muslims should be effectively prevented, and more importantly, there should not be any prevention or any restriction of Rohingya Muslims' birth. Rohingya Muslims should be allowed to exercise all their basic rights and freedom of movement, including they can their birth to their children, and no measures or no action either from the security forces or from any other institution, private or public, and the people of Myanmar should cause not any harm against the interest and rights of the Rohingya Muslims in the state of Rakhine. Second provisional measure was military should immediately restrain and abstain from committing any genocidal acts against Rohingya Muslims. Third provisional measure was Myanmar should ensure to prevent any destruction of evidence and to protect the material evidence of allegations of acts mentioned in Article 11 of the Genocidal Convention as raised in the dispute by Gambia. Fourthly, the provisional order of the International Court of Justice, the Myanmar should submit a report stating all the measures taken by the Myanmar to implement this provisional order within the 4 months from the date of this order, and thereafter every 6 months the Myanmar should submit its report stating that what all the measures it had taken to implement the provisional order till the final decision of the dispute rendered by the International Court of Justice. Dear viewers, this is the landmark order, provisional order delivered by the International Court of Justice in favor of the Rohingya Muslims who underwent a brutal, inhuman, numerous torture since from the October 2016 by the Myanmar military forces. The Gambia, with the support of the international community, European Union and Islamic Cooperation Organization, have defended the Rohingya Muslims before the highest court of the UN, and in the last have got justice. The Rohingya Muslims now living in the Rakhine state are protected by a binding order from the International Court of Justice, which is a classical, illustrious example for any group of people, whether ethnic minorities or indigenous individuals, people who are suffering from mass and grave human rights violation, have a confidence to approach the international institutions, and ultimately they can attain justice and can restore basic human rights. And we, the team of lawyers, along with the Forward YouTube channel, are looking forward to take up any cause for any group or ethnic people or any minority individuals or persons who are facing humanitarian crisis, and to take their case as a public cause before the international forum and to get justice. With another video, I will see you again. Till then, I am signing off. Thank you.